Welcome back to the new college football season, everybody. This is going to be Dane and Nick breaking down Dane's top 12 quarterback list in the SuperWest region. So excited to get back to talking signal callers and college football and all of that. And without further ado, you want to say a quick hello, Dane?
Yep. Good morning, everybody. Glad this football season is getting closer. We still got some time, but it's right around the corner.
Yes, it is. Many changes from last year. Just too much to get into all that today. So we will keep it simple and stick to the fancy little leaders of the teams and the quarterbacks. So first off, what impact do you think Dylan Gabriel will make at Oregon this year? And do you think he can get to the Ducks to the next level, or will he kind of be a letdown after Bo Nix?
Yeah, he's a question mark for me. I don't really have a strong view on the Big 12 and what he was able to do in the Big 12. I mean, yeah, he put up a lot of numbers, and he has some good stats to back it up. I think at Oregon he's going to have a better offensive line than he had at Oklahoma, and he might have some better weapons to pass to. And so I think he'll play better. He'll have a better season than he did at Oklahoma. Is that going to translate to what success that Oregon is expecting? It might. If Oregon doesn't make the playoff, obviously there was a massive failure. I think a lot of people are looking at Oregon as one of the teams that could win the national championship this year. And with an offensive line that they have mixed with Gabriel, I think it's a fair expectation to have legitimate belief that they can make the national championship game. But I don't know. I want to see it. I want to see it before. That's why I have them at 3 and not as 1 as 2. I have questions there, and so we'll see how it translates. But with that offensive line, I have some pretty lofty expectations for Gabriel. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And Dane, what you did there is pretty smart because I should have done that at the top. So one on your list, you got Cam Rising, Utah. Two, you got Shadur Sanders, Colorado. Three, Dylan Gabriels, you just touched on. Four, No Fafita, Arizona. Five, Will Rogers, Washington. Six, Chandler Rogers, Cal. And I'll read the second half of the list as we go further down the questions. So kind of getting to the next question here is why do you have Will Rogers so high? I might be a little bit of a hater, but I think Washington's just going to have a little bit of a tougher year, losing all those pieces and going to a new conference.
Well, I think Will Rogers just does what he's supposed to do. I think his last season at Mississippi State not really indicative of his true strength as a quarterback. He was at with Mike Leach, right, and then Leach passed away, and they changed offenses, and it came to more of a running style offense that he was running his last year. And so he wasn't really able to show what he really can do last season. And I think he's just a good player. He's a solid quarterback. Jed Fish's offense, he's just going to have to execute the throws. I mean, it's this type of system that's really cerebrally advanced, and so you're kind of beating the defense before the snap even happens, and so somebody is going to be open. Somebody is, and you just have to be mobile enough to buy yourself enough time to find that player. And if he can do that, which I think he can, he's going to thrive in Fish's offense. So I might even have higher expectations for Will Rogers than I have for Dylan Gabriel, and that's simply because of Jed Fish's offense. I understand Oregon has a better team. They're not in a rebuild like Washington, but Jed Fish's offense is elite. And when you have a player like Will Rogers running it, you should have really good results. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw how quickly you changed around Arizona, obviously finding Fafita, and then obviously the two talented wideouts last year in Tetsuo McMillan and Cowing. And I mean, it is easy to forget that just 3 years ago, Arizona was obviously in a much different place. So, yeah, Fish's offense has been something. So I want to see how it translates in the Pacific Northwest, but definitely he proved himself at Arizona. So this is the question I've been waiting to ask. Many would disagree with you. You have Cam at number one and Shadur at number two. I actually agree with you. I think Cam Rising is vastly underrated. But what's your take on that? How come you have Cam at the number one spot?
Well, I put Rising number one because I think he doesn't get enough respect for what he's done at Utah. I know he's coming off an injury, and so there's a lot of questions, legitimate questions about whether or not he's going to be the same type of player because his value as a player was his scrambling ability. He can extend plays with his legs, not only getting first downs but also completing passes on the move. And his decision making in those situations was just absolutely elite. And he can take hits and scramble pretty well. He's got some speed to him. He's not a little guy, He's got some strength to him. And so when you take a team to two straight Rose Bowls and you're coming back, for your super senior season, I think you have to just be recognized. I think it's a legitimate number one. Maybe Sanders is more athletic, or maybe have a higher ceiling in the NFL or something like that. But right now, coming into next season, I think it has to be Cam Rising. It can't be anyone else based on the past history, and I just it's got to be Cam Rising, man. And you have to just recognize what he did to Utah, two straight Rose Bowls, and now he's coming back to lead them into the Big 12. I think he's got to be number one. And you look at a guy like Shadur Sanders with serious questions about his offensive line, and yeah, I can't put Sanders number one with an offensive line like he has at Colorado. And what Cam Rising has accomplished speaks for itself. So that's why I put Rising at one.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, and obviously, Shadur has all the tools, like you mentioned. I mean, but when you're getting sacked every single play, it is hard to get the number one spot, whether it's warranted or not. And then, so on the bottom for your list, is there a signal caller you think could prove the biggest surprise? You got Miller Moss, both of the Bradens and Elijah Brown down there.
I'll go with Miller Moss underperforming. I guess if that's a surprise to some people. I'm not buying the hype yet. I need to see more from Miller Moss. I know he torched Louisville in the Holiday Bowl, but if I remember right, they had some opt outs, and it was just bowl games these days are not real games like they normally are. And so I'm not buying Miller Moss yet. And so I think some people might be thinking he's a better quarterback than I do. So I got him way down there at 9, and some people might not particularly agree with that. But I don't think he's going to play that great. I think USC might struggle this season. Um, I don't have high expectations for USC coming into the season. But I want to mention Fernando Mendoza because there's a starting battle at Cal with Chandler Rogers coming in from North Texas. And if you remember, Fernando Mendoza last year came in as the third string quarterback for Cal, ended up leading the Bears to, I think, eight starts and got them bowl eligibility. I think they won the last 3 games of their season, including against UCLA. They ended up losing in the bowl game, but they got to the Independence Bowl out there in Louisiana. And I think Fernando Mendoza, if he wins that starting job again, watch out for Cal in the ACC. I think they're going to be better than people are expecting. I think somewhere between 6 and 8 wins possibly for Cal. But Fernando Mendoza is a really good quarterback. He doesn't necessarily have the tools, the physical. He kind of makes mistakes sometimes throwing interceptions. But he has that leadership that's the X factor that gets a team to rally around him. Your quarterback is usually your front man. He kind of gets everybody going, and he has that ability to get that team behind him, and that's worth a lot. You can get your team to take elevate their game to the next level. It makes the entire program better, and Fernando Mendoza is really good at that. And so at one point I had him on this list, not as an honorable mention, but actually on this list. But I didn't feel it was right to have 2 Cal quarterbacks on there, so I knocked him down to an honorable mention and moved up Rogers.
Yeah, that question took it a little bit differently than I was expecting. My pick out of the last 4, I'm a big fan of Fowler Nicolosi, one of the Bradens at Colorado State. Kind of similar to like you're mentioning of Cam Rising on a lesser scale. Ever since he's taken over, he's just proven absolutely phenomenal. I think you touched on in your articles had a little bit of problem turning the ball over. That's to be expected with a young quarterback. I just like it's corny. You just said it. I can find a different way to say it, but you either got the chutzpah or you don't. You can lead a team or you don't. And with Fowler Nicolosi there, I actually think Colorado State can win some games. And before he took over, I felt pretty pathetic. Wish there was another way to say that. So moving on to the next question here. All right, Dane, talk to me about Noah Fifita. I think you may have a little familiarity with him, but how do you think he'll fare in a new conference in the Big 12?
Well, I think he'll be okay in the conference itself. I don't think the Big 12 is that great of a football league. I think for the most part, it's going to be a step down for the Pac 12 schools joining the Big 12. I think last year the Pac 12 demonstrated that it was probably the best conference in the United States. And so the competition level isn't going to be quite the same. I'm not going to say it's going to be an easy path or it's going to be straightforward. There's going to be mistakes and there's going to be bumps in the road. But I think generally Arizona and No Fafita for sure will be okay in the Big 12, the quality of competition wise. My concern more is the implementation of the new offense. Fafita ran Fish's system, and so he's used to running what Jed Fish does. And this new coaching staff is doing something different. It's not the same. We haven't really even seen the full version of it. The spring game wasn't really a spring game. So we can't really see what exactly it's going to look like. I've heard some things, but that's the question mark, right? So we don't know what the offense is really going to look like. I think Arizona's got great wide receivers, some good tight ends, depth at running back, 4 or 5 returning starting offensive linemen. Um, Arizona is going to be in position to be a great team. There's a potential to get another 10-win season here in Tucson. But until I see it on the field, I have to put Fafita lower. Those guys above him have more experience. The guys above him are generally bigger, they're stronger. And so, I got to see it on the field. Obviously, this is a forward looking preseason projection, so we never know what's actually going to happen with Fafita. I think sometimes he makes mistakes. He throws interceptions when he shouldn't. I think he gets a little overly focused on McMillan. He's sort of his security blanket. So if Tetairo and McMillan is kind of open, he's going to throw it to him. And so he might look off like a tight end that's wide open because he's got McMillan kind of open. So he's going to force it to McMillan instead of hitting an open tight end. That's a problem that he had a little bit last season, and we got to see that development for him. And his scrambling ability is really going to be key. If he's taking sacks, it's going to be a problem. But if he's able to escape the pressure and not throw interceptions, he'll be higher on this list.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I think Fafita is obviously better, but maybe it is to be expected that he has a little wildness to his game with a guy like Jaden Delora kind of being his mentor or the guy who took his job, But I mean, Delora, I always called him the kind of like the Pac-12's Brett Favre. So obviously, Fafita's better, but maybe a little bit of learned maybe 1 or 2 good things and 1 or 2 bad things from Delora. And then we already touched on the California quarterbacks. One thing I want to add is I really like Mikey Keene at Fresno State. Same thing we touched on basically with Braden Fowler, Nicolosi, but I think that Mikey Keene's a little bit more complete. I just like the way he runs the offense. So I'm really excited to watch him in Fresno State next year. And then kind of the final question I got for you today is which Braden are you rocking with? The one from Hawaii or the one from CSU?
Colorado State. Fowler Nicolosi, I think, is got a lot higher ceiling. Braden Shager at Hawaii has been there forever, and he kind of just throws the ball a lot. And he's a good quarterback, but he's not really gonna, change the dynamic of the team. I think Fowler Nicolosi really could. I think he's got that X factor, swagger. I don't know what it is. There's something about that guy, and I actually think he's too low on this list at 11. But because of those interceptions that he threw last season, I really just can't put him any higher. But I definitely expect him to have a good season. I think he has the tools to be a pretty damn good quarterback.
Yeah, and you were wondering what it is. You said what kind of separates him and these guys from others. I believe rappers would call it that juice or that new AP. I've heard. I don't know exactly what that means. So if I just swore or offended anyone, I'm very sorry. But that is what they have, Dane. That is what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
New
but
AP.
that's exactly what it is.
Not a
No
watch.
idea.
How would APs are? APs are watches?
Oh, okay, okay. Hey, I feel a little cooler now, man. You know what I'm saying? Bling bling, baby, bling bling. But no, this is a dog tag in all seriousness.
Nah.
But my mom got it for me. But I've always had a dream of maybe being a rapper, but unfortunately, I don't have the skill set. These guys can actually do poetry and rhyme. But kind of before we get off topic here, which can happen from time to time. Anything else you'd like to add before we get out of here?
Nah, I think the Cal quarterback battle is interesting. The Stanford quarterback battle is also interesting. I got Elijah Brown on there because I don't think anybody is really going to establish themselves, and I think Troy Taylor will just gamble on the future and put Brown. The quarterback situation at both LA schools is crazy. I mean, UCLA, you got Ethan Garbers, which I guess is an okay option. And then at the Trojans, I mean, I've already talked about Miller Moss and my low expectations. There might not be very good football being played at the LA schools in the first year of the Big Ten, which is crazy. Actually, I might expect Cal to have a better year than both UCLA and USC.
All right, so that's been our breakdown of the top 12 quarterbacks in the Super West region. Actually, a really solid list of top 12 guys. I mean, outside of Elijah Brown at Stanford, I think the top 11, even including Fernando Mendoza, honorable mention, could all really impact their team and maybe win some games this year. In regards to the college football landscape, it's all new. So all these quarterbacks can be new conferences, facing new teams, and there's really no way to predict it. So, Dane, anyone you feel that I haven't said? I know I already asked you anything else you'd like to add, but is there anything in the general college football landscape, anything in Arizona, anything that you would like to add, or yeah, just anything you'd like to add? Now I'm just rambling.
Well, when I was doing this research, I realized that it's really top heavy. The quarterback talent in the West is so top heavy. I mean, I got my first 4 or 5 guys, and then I'm like, who else is there? I had to do some research and find this, and so I think the top 5 probably are significantly apart from 6 through honorable mention.
All right, you heard it from Dane. You heard it from Dane himself. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Dane and Nick breaking down the best quarterbacks in the Super West region. You guys have a good day, and let's get ready for the upcoming college football season.